Mr. Chairman, I suppose I am a fanatic for child safety. I am a fanatic against child sex trafficking. Yes, I am. And I will be a fanatic to stand up for the public interest and the vast majority of Americans who want the truth to come out and don't want to sweep it under the rug.
Then the
Tuesday's
gentleman
my
will
time.
support this
It's my
bill.
time. I'm not yielding to you right now. I've heard enough from you.
The gentleman,
used-
the gentleman should focus on the point of order.
This is focusing on the point of order, Mr. Chairman, because
All
I'm
right,
talking about the international dimension.
Just reminding the gentleman who spoke more than anyone today here at this hearing and has said that he's not going to support the bill, as the gentleman from California just pointed out. So if you can stay focused on the point of order, that'll be good.
I would love to support the bill if you support the release of the Epstein file and the Acosta file. Finally, the test right now of our commitment to protect children is whether we will stand by the broad public demand for the immediate release of the complete Epstein file. The President of the United States, who was Epstein's best friend for more than a decade, once demanded the release of the file, but he now seeks to cover it up and calls the child trafficking scheme a hoax and totally irrelevant. After Ghislaine Maxwell was subpoenaed to testify on this hallway by the Oversight Committee, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche was sent to interview her, this convicted felony sex offender, Epstein's partner in human trafficking and serial liar, not to gain new information about the case, but to try to exonerate Trump, whose name is apparently all over the Epstein files. It was clear from the interview, Mr. Blanche believes he is still acting as Donald Trump's personal criminal defense lawyer. He's certainly not acting as a public official representing the best interests of the American people. Following their conversation, Ms. Maxwell, who is seeking a pardon and clemency from President Trump for her sordid crimes, was moved almost overnight to a federal minimum security prison colloquially known as Club Fed. This is a prison that does not normally accept felony sex offenders at all. She skipped the entire process of having to prove that there is some compelling justification for transferring her from one prison to another, an extraordinarily difficult process that ordinarily takes 6 months or more to happen, and she was moved pretty much overnight to this special cushy prison. Meanwhile, our friends across the aisle, with a few notable and honorable exceptions, including Representative Massey, a member of this committee, Representative Boebert, Representative Green, and Representative Mace, are essentially passively participating in Trump's cover-up and dismissing the demand of the survivors, the victims of Epstein's crimes, who are demanding a complete accounting and release of the total Epstein files. So I want to commend our colleagues, both on the Democratic side and the Republican side, who have signed on to the discharge petition for standing up for the victims, standing up for the survivors, and having the courage of their convictions to stand up in the face of this bizarre U-turn in the president's position. If the majority wants to combat child trafficking, let's start by ensuring total transparency and accountability for one of the most prolific and horrifying sex trafficking rings in the 21st century. We must make it clear to anyone who participates in the exploitation and trafficking of children, regardless of their position or their political party, they will be held accountable under the law. Democrats stand united on this. I'm sorry to say that our Republican friends don't, but it is not too late to join us in standing up for this discharge petition. I yield back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back. Without objection, all other opening statements will be included in the record. The chair recognizes the gentleman from South Carolina to offer an amendment in the nature of a substitute.
There's an amendment at the desk, Mr. Chairman.
Clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment in the nature of a
Without
substitute.
objection, the amendment in the nature of a substitute will be considered as read and shall be considered as base text for the purposes of amendment. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from South Carolina to explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment makes various changes to the bill, including creating a consultation process to protect UACs, clarifying which individuals are eligible to serve as sponsors of the UACs, adding additional relevant items to the list of information that HHS must provide before placing a UAC with a sponsor, and adding a severability clause, effective date clause, and exempting the bill from requirements of the Paperwork Reduction Act and Administrative Procedures Act. I urge my colleagues to support the amendment in the nature of the substitute to H.R. 4371, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Who seeks recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment I'd like to introduce.
Clerk will report. Point of order being reserved by the gentleman from California. Wait, hang on a second.
Okay, yeah.
Clerk will report, and then we'll go.
Amendment to the amendment and the
Without
nature.
objection, the amendment will be considered as read. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized to explain the amendment.
Thank you kindly. My amendment's simple, Mr. Chairman. It would not let this bill take effect until all the Epstein files are released. My Republican colleagues have put forward multiple bills this markup that reflect what they say is a renewed focus on protecting kids against trafficking and exploitation. Well, this is the test. If our colleagues are serious, and I believe they are, then they should be happy and eager to join me in supporting this amendment. The text before you is the same text as Mr. Massey and Mr. Khanna's discharge petition that every Democrat and 4 of our Republican colleagues have joined in. In just the last 48 hours, we've seen how important it is that the public actually get to see the Epstein files for ourselves. The Oversight Committee has received Mr. Epstein's entire 50th birthday book, courtesy of Mr. Epstein's estate. This includes the now infamous and slightly juvenile birthday note and drawing that President Trump denied existed at all. In fact, he sued the Wall Street Journal for $10 billion for reporting that Trump had written this suggestive and lascivious note with the drawing of well, perhaps an underage girl's body, hard to say exactly what it is, but in that note, he draws an outline of a woman's naked body, a young woman's naked body, wishes Jeffrey Epstein happy birthday, and then ends it with, "May every day be another beautiful secret." Well, this is now public, and it clearly includes the president's signature. He's disputing that it's his signature, but it looks exactly like about 100 other signatures that we have from the president, including on federal legislation. So let's not allow this to be another beautiful secret before we proceed. Let's open up the Epstein files. The book also includes some disturbing, never before seen images that appear to depict Epstein grooming young girls. It includes a never before seen document where Epstein and a longtime Mar-a-Lago member are joking about selling a woman, a quote, fully depreciated woman, to Donald Trump for $22,500. You can see it yourself if you have any doubt about it. Look, it's time for all of us to decide, Democrats and Republicans alike. The country is unified around this. Are we going to be on the side of transparency and accountability, or are we going to be on the side of the human traffickers and those who collaborate with them and collude with them and protect them? There is a stench of corruption, predation, and exploitation that now hangs over this whole matter. And we are seeing one of the greatest cover-ups of our century unfolding in real time. Which side are we on? And that cover-up, of course, starts with Alex Acosta, Donald Trump's Secretary of Labor, who gave Epstein a ridiculous plea bargain, ending the federal case against him for no apparent reason other than his wealth, his connections, his political power. There was a multi-count federal indictment ready to go, and Alex Acosta, who was the U.S. attorney in the Southern District of Florida, gave it up and instead traded it for 1 count of solicitation. It didn't even mention child sex trafficking. 1 count of solicitation under Florida state law. He got the sweetest of sweetheart contracts. He was free in the daytime for several months, and then he went and spent the night. in jail. And allegedly, he continued his criminal activities, grooming and procuring girls and having sex with underage girls and young women. So, this is about corruption. This is about the wealthy and powerful being able to manipulate the American justice system to get away with their crimes against kids. Let's release the file to the public. Vote yes on this, everybody. Let's make some history today. Let's make some history that we are going to see that the Epstein Files actually come to light. That's what America wants. The most liberal people, the most conservative people, people across the spectrum want to see the files. We don't want dribs and drabs of the files they want us to see. We want the files they don't want us to see. We want the entire case file that they've got. Let's clear the air. Let's get the truth and the facts out there. Let's put an end to this corruption and cover-up. Let's do it on a bipartisan basis. I hope my colleagues will support the amendment, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from California, does the gentleman insist on his point of order?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman's amendment would introduce...
Yeah, so, Mr. Chairman, I fail to see
Gentleman is
how,
recognized to speak to his objection.
I fail to see how the gentleman's obvious case of Trump derangement syndrome has anything to do with this bill affecting immigration law. It's therefore not germane. I also question whether the gentleman's vicious attack on the president's character is in violation of the House rules, but I'll stick with the germaneness question for now.
Does the gentleman wish to speak on...
I certainly do. I don't know what deranged Trump syndrome is because I've not met with his psychiatrist, so I don't know what you're referring to with deranged Trump syndrome. In any event, you haven't contradicted a single fact that I put forward. It seems like you want to try to impinge on my free speech rights or my speech and debate rights. That's a bizarre turn of events, given that we've just been talking about the First Amendment and freedom of speech. But in any event, this is completely material and relevant. It's about the Acosta deal is about providing immunity from federal prosecution to Epstein and all of his unnamed co-conspirators. They were protected by that sweetheart deal. And this is about child sex trafficking, and the legislation is all about the protection of children. I don't see how it could be more aligned with the legislation here. Look, if you oppose it, if you don't want the file coming out, at least have the backbone and the courage to stand up and say you don't want it coming out. But don't say this isn't relevant to the protection of children. Give me a break. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
I would just point out that the Oversight Committee is conducting an investigation, and in fact, it's the Oversight Committee that subpoenaed the very document the chairman referenced in his statement, so they are doing their work there, and they will be deposing the gentleman he recognized in his comments, Mr. Acosta, and I think in 2 weeks that deposition is slated to happen. The gentleman's amendment does not satisfy the subject matter and fundamental purposes test, therefore it is not germane and is out of order.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to appeal that. And the reason is, Epstein used a ring of associates to rotate the women and girls in and out of sexual servitude, and many of them came from outside of the country. So this is all about human trafficking. He ran an international sex ring, and now you want to say it's not relevant to the legislation, which deals with the protection of children. I do appeal that.
I'm just following the rules.
Chairman, I move to table the appeal.
The gentleman has moved to table the appeal.
Mr. Chairman,
All those in favor
Mr.
of
Chairman,
table it?
I have a point of order.
Gentlelady can state her point of order.
Mr. Chairman, could you give the rationale for why this is not germane? Because I simply don't understand it. I mean, the fact that the Oversight Committee is doing something does not negate our ability to do something. If you want to vote against the amendment, I suppose you could do that. But why is it not germane? This bill is about unaccompanied minors. We know that there is trafficking. It is about trafficking. It is about sexual abuse. It is about all the things that the release of the Epstein documents are also about. So what is the rationale for ruling it not germane versus you saying that you don't support the amendment, which
No, I didn't say I didn't.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to follow up on the excellent points made by the gentleman from Florida and from New York. Let's try this again. I've got an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report. Gentleman from California reserves a point of order.
Amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 4371 offered by Mr. Raskin.
Without objection, the amendment will be considered as read. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized to explain the
The amendment, Mr. Chairman, thank you, ensures the release of all files associated with Alex Acosta in the Epstein affair. The gentleman from New York focuses our attention on the fact that this was being investigated back in 2004, 5, and 6. And in May of 2007, an assistant U.S. attorney working for DOJ prepared a draft 60 criminal count indictment against Epstein. 60 criminal counts: statutory rape, solicitation, human trafficking, conspiracy, and so on. They had a very comprehensive and complex understanding of what Epstein was doing, how he was funding it, who was involved in it. And just 2 months later, Epstein's attorneys met with the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida. That U.S. Attorney would later become famous as Donald Trump's Secretary of Labor, but at that point, he was leading the investigation, and he offered to end the investigation and throw away those 60 federal charges completely if Epstein would plead guilty to the state charge of solicitation. Now that has got to be the sweetest, coziest, sweetheart deal ever made by a federal prosecutor. They've got this guy dead to rights on 60 criminal counts of running a comprehensive child sex trafficking conspiracy, an international one. For those of you who are sticklers for materiality and relevance, an international child sex trafficking ring, and they gave it all away. They accepted a short jail stay for him. So what did he get to do down there in Florida? Well, he pled guilty and he got 18 months in a minimum security facility. He was allowed to leave for 12 hours a day to work at a foundation he founded, and apparently continued doing exactly what he was doing before. And I don't want to be too graphic and lurid because there might be kids watching, but he was doing precisely the kinds of things that we're talking about in terms of the protection of children. He was violating children, violating young women, and then he would go and spend the night in jail. And in the meantime, he was able to bargain immunity for all of these other people who were working for him.
The gentleman yield.
Yes, by all means.
In other words, while he was doing all the sexual predation, the government was providing room and board and meals and making it cheaper for him to do so.
Well, that's not a bad way of looking at it, especially because apparently it was a very comfy jail cell they set up for him. Now, I'm sure he would have preferred to be back in one of his mansions, which were basically sexual dungeons for the young women and girls that got swept up in his sex conspiracy, which was something that the vast majority of Americans deplore and abhor and want to get to the bottom of and want to know the truth about. But anyway, he spent those nights, and then they wiped the slate clean for him to continue to go on and do it again and again and again. This is a guy who should have immediately been prosecuted and then convicted and sent to prison for the rest of his life for what he had done. Now, Ghislaine Maxwell was prosecuted and convicted as a felony sex offender and sentenced to 20 years in jail. She just got transferred out of her prison to a club fed in Texas where sex offenders are not normally allowed. Felony sex offenders are not normally allowed there, but after she spoke to the president's former criminal defense attorney, who's now working in the Department of Justice, and he liked what he heard, she was immediately transferred over to this very comfy arrangement in Texas. She skipped over months and months of the normal process where you have to prove there's some compelling reason to be transferred from one facility to another under the rules of the Bureau of Prisons. She bypassed all of that, and she got sent over to this other prison because, well, Mr. Blanche liked what he heard when he went over to talk to her. Come on. We're the Congress of the United States. The framers of the Constitution thought that we would stand up for integrity and we would stand up for our interests and not be servile, partisan sycophants to the President of the United States. So let us all show some backbone today. Let's say we don't move forward on this legislation until the Epstein Acosta file is released. Let's vote for that, everybody. And if you're serious about getting the truth of it, you will support my amendment. I yield back to you, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman yields back. I would just point out that the director of the FBI will be sitting at that table 1 week from today, and all the questions and concerns Mr. Moskowitz raised, he can ask the director, he can ask him right to his face, and we'll get the answers. And then with regards to Mr. Acosta, he will be being deposed on the 19th of this month. So in 9 days, he'll set for a deposition where he will be under oath, and Mr. Garcia, who has the job that Mr. Raskin used to have, can ask him all the questions and make all the points that the ranking member of the Judiciary Committee just raised.
But Mr. Chairman, you would agree that the questioning...
Gentleman from California is recognized.
Wouldn't the question be more meaningful if we actually had the file to look
Mr.
at?
Chairman, I insist on my point of order.
Gentleman insists on his point of order. Does the sponsor of the amendment... I'll recognize the gentleman.
Thank you. I'm reminded of Churchill's definition of a fanatic, a man who can't change his mind and won't change the subject. But the subject has nothing to do with immigration law, which is the subject of this bill, and therefore the gentleman's amendment would introduce material beyond the scope and purpose of the bill before us. It violates House Rule 16, Clause 7. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Does the gentleman from Maryland wish to respond?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I suppose I am a fanatic for child safety. I am a fanatic against child sex trafficking. Yes, I am. And I will be a fanatic to stand up for the public interest and the vast majority of Americans who want the truth to come out and don't want to sweep it under the rug.
Then the
Susie, it's
gentleman
my
will
time.
support this
It's my
bill.
time. I'm not yielding to you right now. I've heard enough from you. Now, Mr. Epstein's victims included aspiring models from abroad, including South America. He had a whole team working in France.
The gentleman,
used-
the gentleman should focus on the point of order.
This is focusing on the point of order, Mr. Chairman, because
All
I'm
right,
talking
just-
about
just-
the international dimension.
Just reminding the gentleman who spoke more than anyone today here at this hearing and has said that he's not going to support the bill, as the gentleman from California just pointed out. So if you can stay focused
I
on the point
wanna-
of order, that'll be good.
I would love to support the bill if you support the release of the Epstein file and the Acosta file. I mean, let's.
We're forgetting all the information. We're forgetting all that information out, and that's why I've told you about.
Well, let's get it out today.
Mr. Acosta's deposition and Mr.
We've heard a lot of promises
Coming
about getting it
before the
out.
committee.
We haven't seen much action. A lot of promises, but no action. Today, we could take some action. The gentleman suggests that my amendment is not in order because it's not germane to the question of international child trafficking and illegal immigration. Well, Mr. Epstein's victims, including aspiring models and girls being taken advantage of from South American countries and from Europe and France. He used a ring of associates to rotate the women and girls in and out of sexual servitude in different countries, in different places, using fraudulent modeling visas to transport them across state lines and across international borders. He tracked their availability and their proximity using this database. This is exactly what we're talking about. It's hard to see how it could be more material, more germane, and more relevant. It's also the case that air traffic controllers in the Virgin Islands observed Mr. Epstein leaving his private plane in 2018 with girls who testimony suggested were as young as 11 or 12 years old. In one undated incident detailed in a lawsuit, a 15-year-old girl attempted to escape and swim off of Mr. Epstein's island after she was forced to engage in sex acts with Mr. Epstein and some of his guests. The girl was found and held captive on the island after he confiscated her passport, the lawsuit said. So this goes on and on. I mean, you want to close your eyes to it and say it's not a big deal, but don't say it's not germane. You raised the question of the protection of children against international exploitation. This goes right to the heart of it.